Hello friends, welcome back for another part of our Frosty friggin' folks who are freezing their way through a colony that has been deprived of many resources, but we've been doing pretty okay for ourselves. As I am just starting to record this, there are a lot of updates that have happened in terms of game balance and some stuff that we've actually been complaining about a little bit that they have added. So, we're just going to go through the more important ones. There's a couple places where you can look at all of the changes, but the best is really on Oxygen Not Included's site, or more specifically Clay's site, so check that out if you're interested in all of them. But the ones that impact us the most, one is that the Ice Maker can now make snow. We were just talking about how there's no way to continuously make snow, but this has been updated. Whoops. This has been updated to now be able to make snow and ice, so that is a pretty useful update. I'm interested in how much it actually produces and how many of these can actually be pushed. I'm partially interested because we might want to try this out, but also I'm not sure how much we're going to rely on it, considering our setups up here are actually getting started now. I want to see how well we can naturally ranch these with the setup we have going. So let's see, if we wanted... Oh, well, we don't have a tooltip for it. Does it say? Maybe we'll just have to run a batch and then see how much of it actually comes out and go from there. So let's see. I guess we could drop it somewhere around here. Sure. We'll get back to it and we will deal with this a little bit later to see how much this actually produces, because we've got a lot of ground to cover. Actually, we could start deconstructing some stuff in the hospitals. Maybe we could just put it there. Okay, so the other stuff that we should probably talk about, the mammoths have been changed. We were getting a lot of food from them, and our pemmican, people have told me how to pronounce it properly now, has been carrying us for quite a while, but the balance has changed to the point that they don't drop nearly as much, and they also eat a lot more. So these have been balanced a little bit, which is probably good because they were a little bit overtuned. So we're going to have to probably add some more. We're probably going to have to reduce the population of these, honestly. So let me just reduce these to 4, and if we need more chambers, I'll just add another one down below. I'd rather do that than try to rebuild all of this and get it all set up with the optimal number. So yeah, or sorry, with the optimal number of plume squash. The other changes, the flocks have also been buffed. They do not eat as much and they produce more. I've definitely noticed this lately as we have a lot of wood now. Way more wood than we had before. So we now have 2 ethanol distillers, still just 1 petroleum generator. We are sitting at a surplus of petroleum, or rather ethanol. And if we need to produce more, then I will probably change this setup a little bit so that we can have another petroleum generator in there. So that's another change that's happened. Another thing was, we talked about how there's no point to the deep fried steak if you can make the pemmican. I'm going to hesitate every time I say that now. Only because it was just a worse trade. And it was way more expensive to make in terms of, like, energy consumption. So they did actually just straight up remove that, which I thought was interesting. Another big deal is there is a new recipe on here, which is to convert wood into refined carbon. So we can start getting into steel without necessarily having coal on the map. So I will take advantage of that. The thing that I don't want to do, though, and mostly because I'm just having fun with this, is I don't want to switch all of our cooling over to aqua tuners. Mostly because it would be interesting to see if we could play the entire game without aqua tuners or steam turbines at all. So I don't know. Let's see if we can, and we'll try to do it. So yeah, that's going to be the plan here. There weren't that many more big changes. There was one to, like, the mammoth patties. They dropped a slightly different amount of things. I think it's now less phosphorite and more clay, which is okay, I guess, but I'm also running at a pretty huge surplus of phosphorite right now, so I can't complain too much. Yeah, so we'll kind of feel out all these setups over the next little bit. I'm not going to let my food dwindle too far because I still do want to stick on the pemmican, but I definitely will need to increase the consumption of ethanol via these plume squash plants. So perfect timing for our setup up here. One thing that I just noticed, I guess I've always kind of known this, but never really thought about it that much. What's weird is these mesh tiles will allow sunlight to pass directly through them, But for other types of light, like this, it won't allow it at all, at least as far as I can tell. So, like, the type of light, even though it's way brighter right here, the type of light is something that's filtered out by these mesh tiles, which is interesting, I guess. A little weird to do it that way. I would probably just make them all work the same. So, what I realized is that there's no reason to have window tiles right here. So I'm just going to go through and replace all these with mesh tiles, because that'll mean we only really have to build one pump. And it will also mean that we won't run the risk of our pumps actually draining more energy than they're providing by pumping out the ethanol. So we will see. So I'm going to go through and replace all that. The fortunate thing is that replacing a tile underneath snow does not cause it to fall, or at least it shouldn't. So all of our trees should stay intact. So we've gained a few more trees over time. This top section is now ready to start receiving the meteor showers. I did leave some stuff up here to make sure that it got cold enough, because otherwise the things that land, since it's just snow and it's not that dense, will immediately melt and ruin the tree. So yeah, we've got that going on. I guess I should replace the ones up here too, but I do want to cool this area down first, so maybe I'll wait a bit before we replace it. Solar panels are almost all up, so yeah, the idea here is that any ethanol that's produced will drop down onto the solar panels, which will block it just as much as it's blocking when it's up here, I'm pretty sure. Never exclusively tested it, but yeah, anything we can get is going to be a bonus. Then we will have a spot where the ethanol just all runs off and we can pump it out. So I might build it like down here or something, just so that it all funnels into one place. Maybe I could just have it fall through these couple little levels and then have a pump down there. And then you could put that on some kind of automation to make sure that you're pumping it out when it's actually worthwhile and not like every single drop. Because pumping little drops at a time is actually a waste of energy, considering you're spending the same amount of energy, but you're pumping like a fraction of what you could have normally. So we're still kind of waiting for these setups to start up. Now that we know that we don't need pumps up here, this will change the setup just a little bit, but the trees are starting to stay full, at least for these two. And I do need seals that will consume more of it, so I will start domesticating these seals down here. And considering it's out in sunlight, I think it's at peak production. It's at maybe half of what peak production would be in terms of like how often it's actually putting stuff out. You can see there's not a lot of sunlight on this planet, so it's not like this thing is going to be running around the clock, which might mean that we can have about one seal per tree, and we'll see where that gets us. So I'll start off with that, and I will just start domesticating them into these separate rooms. And same thing as before, since I know I don't want anything else planted here, I could put the doors for this like right next to it, or like maybe right here or something, because we will want to eventually like cut this all off entirely, but we don't want to take up a bunch of real estate that's going to be useful for trees. So yeah, we'll figure out the balance there. Another question that someone had, which is a good question to ask, is do the critter fountains work with nectar? And I don't know, but it is worthy of finding out, because if that was the case, then this whole setup probably isn't really all that useful, and we could have just kept what we already had. But let's find out. So let's see, critter feeder. I might not actually have the research for it because it's a little bit later in. So when we get it, we will test it out. Let me check. No, we should have it. Where is it? Oh, it is in the bracking flow. Okay. Yeah, so we will need to check that once we do get the research. So, in order to get that research, we're going to need databanks. So I might set up something to go get databanks in this video, only because that's going to be necessary for the rest of the research that we will need to complete the game. And then we'll make the adjustments to the things that we had already talked about. We'll try to get our food back and balanced out again. And yeah, we'll just kind of see where we go from there. But I did want to address at least the updates and the changes that we're going to be making to our setup over here, as May is just barfing up a storm. And we will get this setup more fully up and running over time. I'll show the actual pumping of the ethanol out of this area once it's time. But yeah, I think that's the plan for this. So yeah, I'll come back when there's some more stuff to talk about. Okay, for me it's been a little while, but for you it's only been a couple seconds. I've just been spending a long time trying to figure out what the best way is to get these chambers set up. I don't know why I'm so attached to this, but I do want to find a way to make this work. The other thing that I'm thinking about is, like, there's not really that much more to do that we haven't already done with this expansion, and at least assuming that this isn't ready yet still, which, yeah, it still says, you know, it'll become available when the DLC is released. So I think we've explored pretty much everything. We still need to deal with all of the balance concerns that are in here because they have just changed a whole bunch of it. We'll talk about that in a second, but this is the last thing that I feel like we haven't fully explored yet. So this is what it looked like in the first revision, roughly. I was just about ready to start ranching in here, but I realized that there's not really a great way to handle all of the eggs and snow and all that stuff that comes through. So I've been messing around with it a little bit. I rebuilt the chamber to look something like this, so that the spots that I don't want trees to fall are going to be having pneumatic doors on them. So if these seals either lay eggs or spit out some ethanol, or if there's snow or whatever, it'll just fall down onto the solar panels and then I can pick it up and ship it wherever I need to. There will always be points where I can't really reach everything that's up here, so I might just need to add some auto sweepers for these areas if I really care that much. And I don't know how much time I'm going to have with dupes, but, you know, stuff like this could at least grab most of the extra things if I really care. The other thing is, like, how are we going to cool all this stuff? And there's also been some concerns about how am I going to keep the body temperature under control for these things. So the solution I've come up with so far is every once in a while there will be something that's extremely cold, like this. There's a huge blob of ice at a really low temperature. So I can move that around. Let's say I want to move it here to help this tree out. And then I will vent any carbon dioxide that I have, because I'm venting carbon dioxide anyway. I might as well use it as a medium to conduct heat. It's also coming out a little colder than these plants will require. So I'm just going to use the carbon dioxide that I'm venting to keep all this stuff cool. And eventually it'll settle at a point where I don't need to do this anymore. But as I'm building a whole bunch of new stuff, the materials that come in are going to be hotter than it needs to be out here. So that's kind of the plan as far as keeping this stuff cool. So I am investing quite a bit in getting this setup going because I would really like it if we could have both a solar setup and an ethanol setup in the same place without needing to rely on so much snow. Hey, here we go. Here's another meteor shower right on time. I was not expecting that. So I'm just going to continue to, like, prune these the best I can. There you go. There's some snow falling through. Only 1 kilogram for each of those, if even that. Yikes. So I'm going to continue to prune this and keep my eye on it to try to get as many trees as possible and as dense as possible so that we can set up all these rooms and start ranching them for real. This seal can start to be ranched as it already is right now, and I will just need to figure out how much they will need to, or how many seals I can support with this type of setup, but we'll figure it out, and I'm going to keep going with this. The other thing that we'll need to do eventually is we will... there was one planted, but it fell. We will eventually need to start getting rockets up. So I think I might start up a carbon dioxide rocket just to start running some databank missions so that we can start getting the rest of the research. There's another tree right there. Yeah, just so we can start getting the research for databanks, because at the very minimum, I'm trying to actually think about this, and if we're going to complete it, at least in time. I don't know when the beta is going to wind up ending. I'm not going to prune this as much. This area is too warm. Whenever the beta is ending, I will try to get as far as possible, but I want to spend the most time working on mechanics that are actually in the DLC. But if I get stuck and can't really go any further, we'll try to complete the game. Oh, nice. This planting was actually pretty good. We'll try to complete the game in, like, the lowest tech possible way, because right now we still don't have aqua tuners. I haven't made a single thing of steel, and I'm going to see how far we can get without all that. I do know at the very minimum, if we're going to complete it, and by the way, completion is something that I would call completing all of these directives. So getting all the artifacts, getting to the temporal tear, building the great monument, that kind of stuff. In order to get the monument, we do need to get to the end of the research tree down here. But we don't need to complete everything else. Like, I don't necessarily need all these rockets and uranium stuff and drilling and anything like that. So I might just get rid of those, or rather not research them at all, and try to do this as low tech as we can. So if we can do it like no aqua tuners, no steam turbines, that would be interesting. So I think that's what I might do. But those are the kind of the concerns that I have right now. But I really want to make this thing work and explore what this has to offer, because there's definitely something interesting here. The other thing too, by the way, is our ethanol is really building up. This is our ethanol right now. I have to imagine it's because the solar panels have been up for quite a while. I could probably get rid of all of these, so I'm just going to turn them off for right now. But the ethanol is doing well, but I don't know where we're going to go. The other thing that we could start doing, if we need extra cooling or anything like that, it might be fun to see how much cooling we can get out of the ice makers, because they did recently change the balance of those. Before, I don't even know if I would consider that, but it might be interesting to check out and see how much we could get done with the new tuning. So yeah, I think that's going to be the plan. I'll just try to keep going along with this. Get this setup as filled out as I can. How's this side doing? Yeah, okay. Try to get this setup as filled out as I can, see what kind of level of production we get, and then see if we can spend all of our energy on, like, buildings that are only in this expansion, or at least have been changed in this expansion. Oh, another one. Just to make just to see if we can complete the game like that. I think we will need rockets that can go a little bit further than carbon dioxide, but it's possible that we could do it by only bouncing between asteroids, and that'd be pretty fun. So I think that's going to be the plan. I'll come back when this is a little bit more fleshed out, and when we get a setup to start doing some carbon dioxide rockets. Okay, something to note here, and something that I didn't realize until now, is the seals need to eat from the space next to the tree. They can't just be standing on top of the tree and eat from it. So these wild ones will never be eaten from, because there is not the right, I guess, platforms to let these seals eat from it. So that's what was going on, and that's why I'm not getting as much ethanol production as I thought. And also why some of these seals were like on the brink of starvation, even though they are tamed and a tree is full. So just wanted to mention that as part of this setup. So yeah, just going to continue to grow this and see where we get. Okay, a couple projects are going on at a time. One is that the petroleum generator is overheating because it's running pretty much around the clock right now, because I'm asking a lot of it. In the meantime, I had been changing a lot of the lines that are coming in here, so that I'm using the natural cooling power of this cold brine to keep this area cool the best I can. But I'm just not getting enough water flow. So we need to increase our water consumption to keep this cool, which is a pretty funny thing to say. We need to use more water in order to keep things cool. Yeah, that doesn't usually add up, but in this case it kind of does, because then more brine will be flowing through here to keep this cool. In the meantime, I'm going to have my duplicants add a whole bunch of temp shift plates, just to help share the temperature of everything around, because the stuff around it isn't that hot. So if we kind of get it more balanced out here, then it'll at least prevent this from overheating. It might still be warm, but it shouldn't overheat. I can now close this off, by the way, and repump out the air out of here. So we can do that. But a couple other things. Number one, like I mentioned, we are going to start getting our rockets up to run our databank missions. I don't have anything to build the nose cone right now, though. Oh, I just barely got it. Okay, refined carbon. So that's what we were waiting for, so I ran a few jobs for that. And since we're being very minimal and low tech, I'm not going to run any more than that. We've built out a lot of these rocket interiors before. I'll talk about it once it's built out, but I'm not going to make like a big deal out of it, because it's not really that interesting if you've already seen it a few times. It's just going to be a pretty normal rocket interior, place to live for our duplicants, a place to create databanks, a place to use a bathroom, that kind of stuff to keep their morale up. So nothing special there. But we'll get that running here just a bit. But the thing that I did want to draw focus to is, because we need more oxygen, or rather more water consumption, the thought that I have is the flux and the seals. So let's take a look at a couple of our resources right now. Number one, our tallow is absurd. We will never use all of this. We're also going to be getting a lot more eggs from those. So I figured it'd be good to start cracking some of these and turning them into some other types of food. One of the foods that's actually a lot more efficient than what I'm doing. So I was creating frost buns before with our sleet wheat grain. It only churns out about 1,200 calories for 3 units of it, but The pancakes only require 2 and turns out 3,600. It's basically 2,000 for 2 units as opposed to 1,200 for 3 units. Counting the raw egg as well obviously goes in there, but the raw egg only contributes 1,600. So it's really like 2,000 versus 1,200. So these pancakes are pretty strong, but we don't quite have the sleet wheat to keep up with that. And the sleet wheat does take water. And I have a setup in mind that I want to try out, and I have no idea how this is going to work. It might just be a total train wreck. But we'll find out. So what I want to do is I want to create a setup here where we have some sleet wheat that's growing, but with the way that we keep it cool is by using the ice makers. And we're just going to see how much the ice makers can possibly cool down the area. It's going to be ridiculous, and we're going to use a lot of power. We're going to use a lot of water to get this to happen. I don't know how it's going to work, but let's find out. Let's see what the ice makers on their own can do if we just spam a whole bunch of them out and create them. So yeah, let's get that setup going. Okay, here's about where we landed. So I put in 3 ice makers, and these 3 ice makers are controlled by a thermosensor that's sitting in this like little battery of cold, I guess, that we will only send more ice into if there is a need to. So we're not just endlessly producing ice for no reason. So the idea is that the sleet wheat just needs to stay under 5 Celsius. So I have it on a thermosensor so that if it is, let's see, if this is above 2 Celsius, then I want the doors to close, right? No. Yeah, that's right. This is always backwards because the thing that you want to happen is red. So anyway, just to make sure that this room stays cool enough, I have all of my hydroponic farm tiles connected to some mechanized airlocks, or at least bordering them, which borders a room with metal tiles that just has some ice sitting in it. Now, if this ice ever gets warm enough, this will send a signal down the line. And I have a couple of automation buffers here. So one's a filter gate, one's a buffer gate. Basically, the filter gate here is to say, like, yeah, we need to make sure that this area is cold enough for long enough before we actually turn this on. Then the buffer gate is, all right, once it's on, it's going to stay on for a little while. I'm not sure how long it actually takes to produce one of these things. It seems pretty fast. So we have that, and these do need to be loaded by hand, which is like, this whole run is basically turning into a frozen caveman run, where we just do like the bare minimum, like tech-wise, to do this. And this is about as low tech as you can get. So a duplicant has to come in here and grab this water and load it into the ice maker. This is going to be cooled down or stay cooled by the water that's coming in here, and I don't know how this is exactly going to balance out. It's been a really long time since I've used one of these things, so... And they've also just changed the tuning, so I'll just have to feel it out and see what it's like. So, we've got our sleet wheat all up and running, and we've got it domesticated, so that will start producing sleet wheat pretty quickly. Our food's holding relatively stable, and we just need for this to start up and start paying off. If we need to, we can expand this out. I might expand it over here and then just add a second place for the ice to drop. I don't know how much this is going to be able to power it, so we're just going to need to wait. The other thing is up here, we've got our rocket pretty much ready, but we do not have a way to generate oxygen while our duplicants are out there. So, we also don't have that much algae, which is what I will typically use. Whoops. Why is this not going back? Okay, there we go. We don't have algae, which is what we'll typically use, because there just wasn't really much or any on this map. So, we're going to go back to a setup for oxalite. So, I'm going to set something up probably over here, something like that the duplicants up here can maintain, that just takes ice and turns it into oxalite using the plants that we were using at the beginning of the game, the Alveo Veras. We will take advantage of that. We will create the setup for it. We will also wire it up to our carbon dioxide tank that we're going to use for both that setup and for rocket fuel. I'm only using it from here because it's already filtered. I know most of these lines are going to be carbon dioxide anyway, but just in case it's not that, I'd rather make sure that it is. The filtration for it's pretty cheap. So I think I'm going to do something like that. This room is going to turn into just a room for eggs that I'm going to hold on to. But I actually wonder, because of how many seals are up here, it kind of seems like the wild seals are just as viable as the ranch seals. The ranch seals are really just good for getting more eggs. But I'm going to leave this wild for as long as possible. So this setup might not matter that much. But yeah, right below it, I'm just going to build off another little extension to this top colony where they start harvesting the Alveo Vera. And we are also going to hook up some more ice makers down here so that they manage their own ice makers instead of expecting ice to be shipped for those Alveo Veras. So this is kind of a full circle for these ice makers. Going back to the beginning of the game where they could have been used to produce ice, but we just didn't at the time. Our queen is cold. Why are you cold? Oh, because probably you're just stepping in water. Guess this might just be a mess for a while. I'll have my duplicants come in here and clean it up. Or I could put some mesh tiles underneath in case any water comes down and just kind of put it back into this. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Anyway. Let's get our Alveo Vera set up going so that we have enough oxygen to start sending our duplicants out into space. Alright, something that I've been meaning to do for a while, now that we have finally gotten down here, is rummaging to see what's in this locker. I don't know what to expect here. Okay, just a warm coat, nothing special. Alright, I was just wondering if this was something that we hadn't seen yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and demolish that. Let's see. Back up to where we were getting our Alveo Veras ready to go. I'm just waiting on the last couple pipes. I think we're actually good now, so we can hook this up to some water to get our ice makers running up here. My duplicants have already been running some stuff in here just manually for the time being. There's been a lot of little projects going on, so they've been taking a little while to get it all done. So we just need to hook up power. I'm going to close this off so that only the top duplicants can have access to it once I open that back up. And yeah, we've been producing off of this for a good amount of time, and this actually produces quite a bit. So I just have all of these storage tiles. You can't really tell because there's a bunch of these hands in the way. But there's a whole bunch of storage tiles that have oxalite in them that I've been filling up over time. There's not a huge amount here, but it is probably enough to get us started. Do have plastic here also, by the way. So I think I'm going to take like 4 duplicants in this and just send them out into space to start doing the databank research. And we'll just need to pick 4 of them among the surface dwellers. So, sure, Meep, Steve, Devin, and Ada. Why not? You 4. That'll only leave 2 back home, but there's almost nothing for them to do anyway on the regular basis. Just take care of these couple of spigot seals and the occasional things that I'm telling them to do. Let's make sure they at least have the skills that they need to get out there. Ada, you're one of them. Here, you're a pilot now. Okay. Now we just need to change our destination to right outside and get him out of here. Oh, I probably should tell him to leave. There we go. So now we're going to get him to launch, and I just have this all kind of quarantined off so that all of the exhaust just gets wasted. Which is fine. I don't really want it to interact with anything down here because this is very temperature sensitive. It can change pretty quickly, so it's been something I've been learning kind of the hard way. There we go. This should be far enough away that none of the exhaust should get down there, so got that done. We'll just make sure to get all the duplicants out. One or more duplicants are trapped, huh? Where are they trapped? What is this? Okay, well that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so let's get them out of their suits, and then now that they're up here, we'll need to make sure that they're able to run these machines. If they need more skills, we can do that, but I'll just set these to be run forever. I'm pretty sure... Do they need certain skills to run this? No, it looks like they just can. Okay, cool. So they're going to be busy out here getting this done. The rocket's pretty straightforward, just a great haul, kind of squeezing it in there. Washroom, and they're just going to sleep on the floor. But I brought 4 of them, even though we only have 2 machines, because one of them will need to produce power, and then one of them might be sleeping or something like that. I could put them all in different schedules. Here, perfect example. There we go. 2 of them are asleep, 2 of them are working. So yeah, that's just going to be something that they do out in space for quite a while to continue our research. So, The other parts that we've been keeping our eye on. Let's take a look at our other ice maker setup. This is holding fairly steady. I did put a double liquid lock in here to help preserve some of the temperature. I did just have an airlock here before that obviously does not preserve all the temperature. But now that we have a double liquid lock, there's some suits up. That ought to really slow the temperature exchange, and the only thing that should be really heating this up is the water that's coming in. These are running maybe like half the time. I thought there were something that said like the uptime and stuff like that. There we go. So last 5 cycles, about 41% is how often these things are running. They're really not that strong, but just for the sake of seeing what we could do with them, they're okay. I mean, they take up a lot of power. This is not something I would advise on a regular basis. This is just us being silly and avoiding... Who's trapped? Why are you trapped? Oh, probably because you built yourself in. Get out of there. Nice. And he's also not a surface dweller, so he should eventually find something to do and leave this area, so that'll be nice. Really don't want him here anymore. Get out of here. Hey, where are you going? Oh, to use the surface bathroom, of course. So, got that setup going down here, and there's no reason that you would really want to do this, but we're just being silly to see if we can get it done. Either way, our food situation has restabilized. I did clear out one of these terrariums for the Bamis because there's just not enough ethanol coming down to keep these plants fed. So a lot of them are starving and aren't doing too great. I am still getting a decent amount of meat from these, but the frost buns, I have started up frost buns again because we are producing way more sleet wheat than we are eggs. The other thing with the eggs that I thought might be a good idea is I'm sending up the eggs that I want cracked up here so that only my surface dwellers have access to them. So I'm not going to crack any of the spigot pups because I still need to populate this area up here. But if any flock spawns come through, they're just going to crack it, assuming they actually have access to it. What is going on? Oh. Interesting. The oxalite must not gas off as fast as I think it does. So let me remove this. I think I just need to unselect it. And it should fall out. Oxygel. I don't even know what that is. How do I... Okay, there we go. Someone change it to none. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Okay. So it looks like we just need to remove it from here. And if I need to re-land them, I always can. Or if I need to crash land them, I always can. So no big deal there. Let's just get all the oxalite out and on the floor. I actually should probably move it all up somewhere because if you put it on the floor, you can get the overpressurization going on down here. And that'll make your duplicants very stressed out. So I'll fix that in just a bit. Probably not an emergency right now, but it looks like that cleared things up. Yeah, we should be good. Okay. The only other things to really be doing here is these areas are definitely expanding. We have a good amount of ethanol flow right now. It's not great, and especially since they changed the balance, this is still not quite feeding all of the Bamis that I need for this right now. So too much strain on this. The other thing we could do, there are some grubs down here at the bottom of the map. We could start getting those rolling, but we would also need to integrate sulfur, and we don't have a regular source of that, so that's not the greatest thing. I almost wonder if it's worth getting fertilizer up, which is not something I've done for a long time, but I don't know. We'll see if that's worthwhile. Alright, anything else? I need to take a look at this really quickly. I don't think so. The only other things I've really been doing in the meantime is organizing a lot of my liquids. There's all kinds of... This is all mercury, by the way, and I've had a couple of comments on this. I am going to answer this again. The specific heat capacity of this mercury is just terrible. They did just release a change so that when you build a building out of mercury, it won't necessarily... What is going on? Alright, I probably need to send these guys back. There's probably not as much oxalite here as I thought. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Yeah, I think I just need to send them back. There's probably not as much as I thought that was here. And this... They breed this really fast. Jeez. Okay, well that was not a very successful mission. Let's get them back before they suffocate. Yeah, so the mercury, there is a new change that just happened, which is The temperature of the building, if it's below like 45, it'll retain the temperature of the materials that you used to build it with, which means that building something out of mercury is now technically possible, but the temperature at which it freezes is like minus 38. So you'd have to make sure that building always stays below 30 or below negative 38, which is pretty unreasonable. So as far as I can tell, this is still pretty useless. The only thing I'm using it for is just liquid locks here and there, but that's nothing that like salt water or even regular water in a lot of cases could do, so I don't know. Really not that impressed. Alright, looks like my duplicants are back. Let's get them back in the colony. Okay, there we go. Jeez, they're really pushing my buttons here. Why are you trapped? What are you doing? You're not trapped. Where are you trying to go? I don't understand. Okay, this is weird. Anyway, I think since there's going to be a decent amount of time before anything interesting happens in the next video, now that we have stabilized our food, we have reacted to the balance changes, this area still continues to grow. We're starting our space missions by running research out there. I think I'm probably going to call it good here. So thank you very much for watching. I'll try to be back with the next part very soon as we continue to plug on in our caveman, our frozen caveman challenge. I guess we can call it that, whatever. But yeah, I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching. See you later.